So today we're going to take a closer look at the purchasing capabilities inside of SAP Business One. Let me open up my purchasing menu here. And in the middle of the screen, I've gone ahead and navigated to my purchasing cockpit. What I can see here are all of those menu items within purchasing that I execute all the time. So this is my common functions or my quick launch pad for purchasing. Then below that, I'm looking at a spend per month for the last 12 months. So this is a rolling report. And anytime I exceed my budget, I'll see red here. Anytime I'm, plenty of spending money left, I'll see that in green. Down below, I'll see a graph of my quarterly spend. Then the rest of this here underneath the purchase overview is vendor performance. And so I have the ability here to clear all my filters. And I can say something like, you know what, show me how Blockies Corporation has performed. And so now I can look at every single purchase from that company and see, were they on time? Was it a full receipt? Was it an over receipt? Were they short? So this gives me the ability to focus on a supplier. How's their performance? If I want to find out, well, who's sending me shorts? I can see who those suppliers are. And then also, if I want to do something like, who's late, which of my suppliers are late, then I can view those. If I need to expand this, we just open it up. You can shrink it back down. Other things I have in my cockpit for purchasing are my open purchase orders. So here, this shows me that I've got 25 open purchase orders. And I have the ability here to, of course, I can sort this any way I want by clicking on the column. So if I want to see my most, recent purchase order first, then I just create a descending sort. Now, if I want to drill down into the purchase order, you can click on any gold arrow, and that then takes you into the purchase order. All right. And then lastly, I'm looking at a container report. Now, this is a pretty small report. You can't see a whole lot here. So let's just expand this up a little bit. But this gives me the ability to keep track of, do I have any containers? If I do, what's the status of that container? When's the ETA, the arrival? And then what kind of container is it? 20 foot, 40 foot? What purchase orders and items are on that container? So anyways, a lot of good information here in the purchasing cockpit to keep track of everything that you want. But keep in mind that this cockpit is completely tailorable. I can totally remove everything in here and go back in and add new widgets and rebuild this the way I want it, even creating my own widgets. Okay, so let's look at purchasing. Let's start here with a purchase request. So one of the nice features is the ability for employees or users of the system to be able to put in a purchase request. I don't even need to know the supplier. So here I can select what department am I in, and then what is it that I need. Now, if you don't have to have items for everything. Now, you can create items for products, of course. So if we see that a product is going below a certain level, then we can go ahead and bring that up. So when you're looking at products here, and I go out and I look at some of these different items here that I might be interested in requesting, I also have visibility of how much do we have in stock. So if I'm out and I see something that we're a little bit short on, then I can go ahead and I can select those items, and I can go ahead and choose those and bring those into my purchase request. But what if we want to request something there isn't an item for? In that case, we would do what we call a service type. And a service type is just simply a description. What is it that you want? And so I could put in, I need a new red wagon. And, when do I need the red wagon? Everything else is optional. And I can go ahead and shoot this off and have a purchase request. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go back to items here. And let's go ahead and let's request some items so we can follow it all the way through to accounts payable. So let's go to our inventory item group. Let's go ahead and let's expand some of these. We'll get some of the raw materials we need. I'm going to grab some caramel flavoring, some mint, and some pumpkin. There we go. So let's buy these 3 flavorings. Now, you'll notice that, or request them anyways, you'll notice how it brought in the vendor automatically. This is an optional field here in the purchase request, but it knew to bring in or recommend that supplier because in the item master, if we look on the purchasing tab, you can see that I've got them set up as the primary supplier. So this is optional here, which means I would have to select the supplier every time I go to buy this ingredient. But because I provided a default supplier here, anytime I go to request this item or purchase this item, it'll always default the supplier. Now I can go out here and change it if I want to, of course. And then what's the required date for these goods? Now I can have individual required dates for each one of these, or I could come up here and pick a date and say, you know what, we need to have these by the 24th. When I do that, it'll ask me, Mike, you want to update the required dates of your line items as well. Now it's asking me, what quantities do we need? So I'm going to say I need 25 pounds of each of these. Now I have the ability to change the unit of measure. I can buy it in ounces, pounds, grams, whatever measurements you want. This is all user definable and part of the setup. You'll notice here how it's defaulted in a price for information purposes. And it brought in that price because we know the default supplier. So it's just for information purposes. This is saying that if the buyer does buy these goods from this supplier, odds are this is what the price is going to be. Okay, so the big thing here is this checkbox. Send an email if a PO, purchase order, so if my purchase request is turned into a purchase order, guess what? I'm going to get an email letting me know. And if the purchase order is then received, it's also going to send me an email letting me know my goods have been received. So let's go ahead and let's put this in here. Let me fix my date. There we go. And I'm adding a purchase request. Okay, so now we've got a purchase request in the system. There are various reports in purchasing. So if I jump down into my purchase reports, you're going to see that there is a purchase request report. So let's go ahead and let's run this report. This is where I can narrow down all of my purchase requests for a certain supplier, for a type of supplier, a type of items, certain users, employees, even multiple branches. So if you're in a multi-company or multi-branch environment, multi-branch environment, then I'm able to look for purchase requests from my different branches. Also down at the department level, or I also have the ability to tie purchase requests to projects. We never really talked about projects, but projects are a completely different module here where you could have internal, external projects. It's great for R&D. So if we've got engineers creating new flavors, they could be putting in purchase requests tied to their project. And that's a really neat feature. All right, so I'm just going to select OK here. Show me my open purchase requests. There they are. So this shows the pumpkin mint flavoring, caramel flavoring that we need. So I can go ahead and I can decide, exactly what do I want to select? What do I want to move forward with? So we're going to go with the caramel flavoring. We'll go with the mint and we'll go with the pumpkin. I'm going to purchase those. So I'm going to select out of all of the purchase requests, I'm going to select the ones I want to turn into a purchase order. And using the create button here, I'm going to create a purchase order. Now, before I do, I could also be creating purchase quotes. Now, there's a really neat feature in purchasing called purchase quotes. And a purchase quote, let me bring that up here. Let me bring up my purchase quote. There it is. Now, the purchase quote, what's neat about this is that this can be sent out to multiple suppliers. And there's a checkbox here that says, do you want to create an online quotation for the supplier? So if you check this box, when you add a purchase quote, it'll automatically email the supplier with a dynamic web form. when the supplier launches that form, they can fill out their responses, and those responses then show up here inside of SAP, without a user license, no license needed for the supplier. So that's a really neat feature. You can send out requests for quotes for your products and ingredients, and then the suppliers can respond right there from the email, which updates SAP Business One. But we're not going to turn this into a quote. We're going to go ahead and we're going to turn this into a purchase order. So let's go ahead and do that. Off it goes. And now it's letting me know down at the bottom, purchase order 1664 was created. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at our purchase order that we've created from our purchase request. So let's go back into purchasing. We'll open up purchase order. And then let's go ahead and let's bring up our last created PO. And here it is. Here's our purchase order now for the 25 pounds of each. Down here, we can see this was based on a purchase request. So you can get an idea for how this is all, traveling through. If we look at the relationship map, that'll show us our workflow. So now we see our purchase request has become a purchase order. Now, you don't need purchase requests to create purchase orders. Using the add button here, I can simply add a PO from scratch. Just like in the purchase request, I can add a PO for items that I carry in inventory and also things I don't have items for, simple descriptions. So again, you don't need purchase requests, but it's great if you've got them, if you're using them. Now, we've got our request, we turned it into a purchase order. Now what we want to do is we want to receive those goods. So we're going to do a goods receipt PO. Now, let me back up a little bit though. When we did the purchase order, one of the things I failed to mention is that based on the settings of the supplier here, when this PO was created, it could have automatically emailed this purchase order as a PDF to the supplier. And I'll do a real quick preview so you can see what a default purchase order form will look like. This is using Crystal Reports, and you do get the Crystal Report Designer with the software. So that means that whatever form here we see is completely tailorable. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up a little bit. I'll slide through here. We can see our caramel flavoring, mint, pumpkin, and anything else we might need to put in here. So anyways, that's an example of how we can put in a purchase order. In this case here, we did it from a request. Now, I'm going to come back in here. I'm negotiating with my suppliers, and they're giving me a really good price per pound. So I'm going to go ahead and update this. And I want to show you a really neat feature inside of Business One. Now, first off, the price could default in automatically. That's an option here. But I'm going to head and put it in. I'm going to update my purchase order. Now, if we take a look, there's a feature up here called the change log. And this shows me every time this purchase order has been touched, who's changed it. So I can see when it was first created, who created it. And then I can see, the same user went back in and changed it. And so if I want to see what they changed, then I can go ahead and take a look and see, well, what did it look like when the PO was first put in? So here's the purchase order when it was first put in, and you can see there's no price. And now, if we take a look at the PO the way it is, now you can see the price. So this really cool feature here called the change log will show you a genealogy of every time a purchase order is touched, an AP invoice, a PO request. And if you're only interested in seeing the difference between the two documents, then you can just click Show Differences. And this shows you the previous value where there was no price after putting in a price, and it even shows a ripple effect it had throughout this document. It updated the gross total, the gross price, the total row, the open amount, all of that was updated. Now, I also just got an alert. I got an alert letting me know that my purchase request was successfully copied to a purchase order. So, woohoo, I got my request. It was approved. I didn't have to pick up the phone and call purchasing, wondering if they got my request. Now I know they got it. Not only did they get it, they turned it into a purchase order. But wait, there's more. Here, I got another alert. This one's letting me know that another request I had was also copied to a purchase order. Okay, so it's letting me know I've got a couple of requests now that have been copied to a purchase order. So that's really good news. Now, let's go ahead and let's receive our purchase order. So what I'm going to do is, before I do that, I do want to show one other thing here. I do want to mention, I also got an email. And here's the email I just got letting me know my purchase request was copied to a purchase order, and shows me purchase request 30 was successfully turned into a purchase order. I don't even have to be logged in to SAP Business One to know if my request was processed and or accepted. Okay, let's copy this to a goods receipt. Now, remember the copy from, copy to. I can copy it to a goods receipt, or I can go into a goods receipt and I can copy from a purchase order, or I can use my handheld here. And in my handheld, I can go ahead and I can just select OK here. Let's go back. And with my handheld, I'm able to receive against my purchase orders this way. So a lot of different ways to receive the inventory. I'm just going to take a quick one here. We're going to add our receipt. Now, these are batch controlled items. So I have my own logic here. When I click this little button, it goes out and it assigns a batch number for me. And this is using a date timestamp. So it's an intelligent batch number that I like. It gives me the date timestamp all the way down to the second. Now, this released option here is up to you. This is a setting that can be changed and defaulted however you wish. But when batches come in, they can be totally locked until they go through a QC process. But we're going to go ahead and let this one be released. How much did we get? When was it manufactured? Is there a best by date, expiration date, any details? These fields here, you can add as many fields as you want. There's no limit. So if there are other attributes you want to capture, color, viscosity, pH, anything, you can add those fields. So let's go ahead. Let's receive our second batch. There it is. And let's receive our third batch. There it is. I could also be scanning in or using my supplier batch numbers, but this is going to give me full batch traceability. Now we've received those goods. And if we refresh our purchase order, you see our purchase order is now closed. If we look at the workflow again, a relationship map, we can see here we started with a request. Now the request does not do a journal entry. We then entered a purchase order. Now, if we look at the purchase order on the accounting tab, there's no journal entry. And that makes sense. Purchase order is just a contract to buy. But when we did the goods receipt, now we have a journal entry. And if we take a look at it, you can see here how it is crediting my accrual account, and then it's debiting my finished goods. Now, let's go ahead and let's do a three-way match for the AP invoice, but let's also change the price a little bit. Let's say the invoice might be a little bit higher than what was on the PO. So let's go ahead and let's do our three-way match. To do that, very straightforward here. Let's get rid of our duplicate report. There we go. To do a three-way match, we're just going to jump into AP. Now, there's a couple of ways we can do this three-way match. And let me explain those. One of those ways is using a subscription called iDocuments. And if you subscribe to iDocuments, what happens is the supplier would send the PDF invoice either to you or directly to your iDocuments URL, which is part of your website. That PDF then gets digested by the iDocuments OCR engine, which uses machine learning and artificial intelligence. And then it will not only put that AP invoice into SAP Business One, but also do the three-way match. So the simple process of a vendor sending you a PDF AP invoice, that PDF AP invoice can automatically show up in Business One, attached at the Attachments tab, and done a three-way match. So that can all be automated. We just want to know ahead of time, what kind of volumes do you have? Does it make sense to use that? Now, I also want to mention, I just got another alert, and this is letting me know that not only was my purchase request 30 turned into a PO, but now I can see it was actually received. So without picking up the phone, I know exactly what the status is of my purchase request. And I think that's pretty huge. Okay, so in AP, I just got an invoice from my supplier. Now, we talked about how in Outlook, once I finish installing the free SAP add into Outlook, I can just simply drag and drop. And that will automatically attach the invoice right here to my tab. For the time being, I'll just use my browse and I'll attach it that way. Okay, so now I've got their invoice attached to my invoice. Now to populate the contents here, we want to do a three-way match. So to do that, we want to look at goods receipts against our purchase orders. So my PDF AP invoice has on there that we're being billed for purchase order 1470. So I am matching the AP invoice to the goods receipt and the purchase order that was received on that goods receipt. And I'm going to say, yeah, we got all three of these items. And this is what we received. Now, so here's my three-way match. Now, what I'm going to do, though, is let's say that something happened. We got the wrong price when we were putting in the purchase order, that this is not 34 cents. This is actually 43 cents. And so we made a change here to one of these prices. Now let's go ahead and let's put in some dates here of payments, and let's add our AP invoice. Here we go. Now the AP invoice has been added. Not only has it been added, it's also been posted to General Ledger. And let's take a look. Now we see the credit to the supplier. We see the calculation of taxes. In this case here, these were purchase exempt. We see the debit to our accrual account. And then look at this. We see an adjustment to inventory for the variance, the change of price. So everything balances and everything's going to General Ledger real time. So that's an example of purchasing in following from purchase rec all the way through to AP. Now there's a couple of other things I'll mention here in purchasing. And one of those is the ability to create purchase contracts. So you'll have the ability to set up contracts with your suppliers for buying certain products or ingredients. So I've got an example of some here. Let me go through a few of these. Here's an example of a contract with Acme Associates for these goods. And on the Documents tab, it then shows every document I've executed against this contract. So this contract allows me to negotiate with my suppliers and say, look, this is how much I'm going to plan to buy from you during this time frame. What kind of price can you give me? And so it's just a way to negotiate. But as we begin to buy from the supplier these items, SAP will automatically keep track of that history. And so we're able to see our execution against that contract. This also gives you the ability to use that as an expense forecast. So for cash planning, cash forecast planning, as well as material requirements planning, MRP, the forecast here that you put in, the blanket agreement can be used as a forecast. We talked about purchase requests. We touched a little bit on purchase quotes. There is a really neat report here in purchasing called the Purchase Quote Comparison Report. So if I run this report here, let's take a look at it. This shows us all of the purchase quotes that have gone out there. And then when the vendor responds, this will highlight for us in red who gives us the best date in this case, who gives us the best quantity, and also who might give us the best price. So I'll be able to see all of this and decide for all of my quotes that I'm sending out, when I'm ready, then which ones do I want to turn into purchase orders? What supplier do I want to go forward with? So this is another really neat report that'll help analyze those purchase quotes. Okay, other things in purchasing is the ability to do landed costs. So let's say on this last purchase order with Far East Imports, there were some broker fees and some duties, and we want to add those costs to the value of our inventory. So down here, what I can do is say, okay, I can copy from some goods receipts, purchase orders. So I'm going to take a couple of purchase orders here. Maybe there were multiple POs on this, this container. I'll grab our purchase orders, including the ones with the 25 pounds of our pumpkin, mint, and caramel. And then I'm going to attach all my different invoices here, because I'm getting invoices from multiple suppliers. I'm also getting an invoice from Anthony Smith. And so now you can see I've got multiple suppliers here that's all pertaining to these items, getting them into the US. And now I'm going to build up my cost. So I did have an insurance of $34. I didn't have to pay any of this other stuff here. I did have some duties, we'll say, were 112. My container was 1,000, and we'll leave it at that for now. Now I can build up all of those costs. You'll have the ability to add any new costs as well. Then with all of those costs, what SAP is going to do, if I check this box here, it's then going to add in an adjustment. It's going to allocate additional costs to the value of my inventory based on the quantity and the value that we received. So, and that goes back to the cost here. How are we distributing the cost? How are we going to allocate these costs? By weight, by volume, by height, cash value. You determine how it gets distributed here. But when I go ahead and I add this landed cost document, now what this does for me, if we take a look at the journal entry here, there it is. Now you can see it's making an adjustment to my inventory based on the total of those costs. So now those finished goods on that landed cost document have an increase in their cost of goods sold. So that's a little bit about the landed cost, another nice feature of the system. Now I can also do some mass delivery. What this means is I can shoot out all of my AP invoices, all of my purchase orders, any kind of document I want. I can do a mass emailing of those. So you can decide at what point do, first off, do you send APs to suppliers? I'm sure you send POs. You can decide, when do we send a PO? Do we send them all out at the end of the day using mass delivery? Or do we send the PO as the POs are being placed, or some other method? Now, there's a feature here called container management, but I want to be totally frank. This is a form that I created myself, and I did this during a demonstration. I went into the customization tools. I added a couple of tables, created the fields for those tables, and then simply registered this as a brand new data entry screen. And this is what we got. And so I do have the ability to add purchase orders that I've created and tie them to specific containers. And then I have the ability to keep track of what status is that container. And this is a really nice way to be able to provide some real basic container management. So anyways, that's there, and any one of our customers can get the step-by-step instructions on how to put that together. Absolutely zero coding, zero IT experience needed. Okay, the only other thing to mention is the supplier relationship management. And here we've got supplier incidents, supplier management, of course. You can actually run marketing campaigns targeting your suppliers. Of course, you can do sales campaigns, are part of the CRM module, but you can also run those same marketing campaigns towards suppliers. So, let you think outside the box a little bit. Is there a way we can reduce our pricing? How can we work with our suppliers better? Same thing with supplier opportunities. Just like in sales, you can also have supplier opportunities. All right, that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead, and there's probably a lot more we can talk about. The one last thing I will do is, let's just say there's a lot of good reports here in purchasing. I won't run all of these reports, but I'll just bring them up. You can see there's quite a few reports: purchase analysis, purchase requests, quotes, orders, blanket agreements, drop ship status orders, and whatnot. But what if you want to create your own report? So we're going to jump down here into Excel report, interactive analytics. And in here, let's go into purchase analysis by document. Now, this is an interesting reporting tool because it actually starts in Microsoft Excel. So if I want to take a look and see what is my net purchase amount and what is my open purchase amount, how much have I spent life to date, and how much is open right now? Now, I might want to look at that by supplier. So I'll select business partner. Now, for each supplier, I'm able to see how much money I've spent with them life to date and how much of this is still open to be paid. And so here I'm beginning to create my own report. Now, if I want to look at this over time, I'll add a document month here. And now I can see month by month my spend and my open amount. Now, if I want to look at this horizontally, I just change the axis of document month. And now I can see horizontally what my net purchase amount is with each supplier month by month, and then my net spend with each supplier month by month, and then a grand total. Now, if I like this report and I want to save it, then I can go ahead and memorize it. I'm going to save this. I'm going to throw it out on my desktop, and I'm just going to call this my PO spend report. And I've got a brand new report. Now, the next time I want to run that report, all I need to do is go out to my desktop. Let me get there eventually here. Here's the PO spend report. And then I'm going to answer yes, refresh the content. All of the data is reloaded. And I've got this brand new report now that will, continuously update every time I open it. So I'll go ahead and conclude with that. There are other report writers to use as well, but hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of the procurement capabilities within SAP Business One. Thanks for watching.